we may have found a winner for the most Stephen King film that ever existed. Hey everyone, it's me, Aaron.
I'm Michelle.
And this is our post-Shriek Out reaction for Sometimes They Come Back. We are still in the middle of Viewer's Choice Week, and this request came from THORGIWEEN. THORGIWEEN actually requested this 3 times throughout the course of the month. So, you know what? Squeaky Wheel gets the grease on this one. You really wanted me to talk about this movie. So we're doing it. We're coming in here. We're talking about this film. And there's 2 things I will say about this film right off the bat. Okay, there's 3 things. And the first thing is that you didn't watch this one with me.
No, I came in, at the very last end. And
you saw the last half hour of this film.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, I get the gist of what's going on.
When you came in and started watching it with me, I was like, should I, pause to fill her in? And it's one of those films where you can kind of jump in at any moment because they will come in here and make sure to go, this is what's happening in the movie. So you were basically able to understand exactly what's happening. So that's one positive I can give the film. But the other 2 things is that I had no idea that this was a Stephen King film, and I also had no idea that this was a made-for-TV movie. And I kept watching this going, man, it really feels like someone is ripping Stephen King off. It feels like Stephen King should get royalty on this one.
And then you, read the credits at the end, it's like...
And then I find out it's based on a Stephen King short, and I'm like, oh! Okay, then, all right.
It's I saw, it's based, from Stephen King, it's like, oh, that explains a lot.
That explains a lot.
Yep.
This goes down that Stephen King bingo list a couple times. All they need was a psychic child in here.
Yeah. Which, by the way, aren't you glad there's no psychic child in this one? Because, aren't you tired of that trope?
I am very tired of that trope. There is a magical angel child in here, so...
Not quite the same, though.
Not quite. But, I mean, there is a moment in here in which they just flat out rip off, a scene from Stand By Me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But then when I found out it's Stephen King, I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's just what he does. That's just what, that's just his thing. All right, that's fine. That's fine. I just kept looking at this man, someone is ripping Stephen King off. Because it's not just there's the scene from Stand By Me where they're walking against the train, but there's also the famous Stephen King trope of the worst bullies in existence. And that's what, the entire premise of this movie is.
Oh, yeah.
Normally, a Stephen King movie will have just really horrible, monstrous bullies pop up in here. These are the worst bullies in any of his films, except for maybe in It. But the bully in here, they're actual demons.
Yeah.
Legit, literal, back from the dead demons to haunt a guy who they were tormenting 30 years in the past. So yeah, I kept looking at this oh my god, it's not just the demons are the villains in this film. It's that they are that special brand of Stephen King villain. Stephen King's bullies are unique from any other bullies because they literally are just like the Joker. They're just chaos engines that just want to destroy everything. And there's always going to be that one bully in the group who's kind of I don't know if we should be doing this anymore. And yeah, sure enough, that person's in here as well. And honestly, the repentant bully, I guess you'll call him, he's probably better than any of the other ones and any of the other Stephen King ones. I actually kind of felt for that guy in this one. So yeah, I gotta give him some credit on that one. But the other thing that I will say about this film is, not only did I not know that was a Stephen King movie, I also didn't know that was a made-for-TV movie. And I kept looking at this thing going, it's not bad, but it just kind of feels cheap to me. It really feels like this should not be in theaters. If this was made for TV, I'd be applying it so much more. And then later I found out it was a made-for-TV movie. I was like, oh, you know what? For a made-for-TV movie, this is actually pretty good. This is actually pretty good by made-for-TV movie standards. Yeah, okay, you don't have, all the resources of a big Hollywood movie. It's all right, I get it. I'm okay with this now. All right, this actually explains a whole lot in here. But yeah, so basically what this movie is about is about this history teacher who is returning to his hometown after being gone for many years, and now he's got a wife and a kid. And when he was a little boy, he had a brother who was the nicest brother in the entire world. You get a moment of the two of them bonding, and he's like, well, I know Mom said he can't come with me, but guess what? There, I just talked to Mom and she said it's all worked out. And hey, here's a math problem for you. Did you solve it correctly? Here's some pocket change for you. Then just like the nicest big brother you could possibly imagine, which is another thing in Stephen King movies. They end up walking through a train tunnel to go to the library to return some books because the train tunnel is quicker. Then these bullies pull up in their souped up hot rod and park vertically across the train tracks, and they start like tormenting them, start asking them for money, and they even like throw the big brother down, and the big brother, he's like bleeding from the head, like he hits the rails, and then the train starts oncoming. And the little brother, he runs out of there, and the boys are trying to get their car out of the way, and they end up getting hit and dying. Now, years later, this history teacher, he's returned home, and he is teaching this history class, and then there's a student in his class who, he's kind of starting to learn, he's starting to ask the right questions, like, all right, you know what, I'm reaching this kid. Then that night, he gets chased down by a souped-up hot rod with flames on the side and shooting fire out of the back of it. Like, it's Ghost Rider's car is what this is. And it chases him down and knocks him off a bridge, and he dies. So now there's an open spot in his class, and one of those bullies comes back. And as I said, one of the things about Stephen King bullies is that they are so cartoonishly evil. And this guy, I kept looking at him just like, no one would ever not expect this guy to just be a monster. Like from moment one in this movie, he's just, hey, Teach. Just like, it looks like he is about to just turn to the Joker. Like at any moment. Or Jack Torrance in The Shining. Like he's about to transform into one of those two. But then they end up killing off this other person in the class. And then another one of the bullies takes her place in there. And one thing that, even by TV movie standards, I gotta like take a point off on this one. The sound editing in here is awful. The sound effects in this movie are so bad because the sound effects in here have me constantly wondering if this is supposed to be serious. Because you didn't see this moment, but you heard this a couple other times throughout the film. But there is that moment in which the second bully appears and you just see the back of his head. And then when he turns around, you hear, caw. You hear an eagle scream as he turns around like, are eagles scary to you, Stephen King? I've never seen that in most of your films before. That's all right. But yeah, it's so weird that's like, all right, the big reveal. All this tension is building up. Caw. Sure. That's a sound you can play then.
That got Peach's attention.
Hey, Peach is a big fan of this movie. So yeah, the sound editing is so weird. And it's because of that, but also how cartoonish the villains were in here, that had me constantly wondering, is this supposed to be serious? Or is this supposed to be jokey? Because there's a moment in which, after all three of the bullies are now back in this class, there's a moment in which they blow up the teacher's car. And you were here for that moment. And it cut to them just sitting around their car with like cans of gas. And they're just laughing their heads off. And they felt like the hyenas in the Lion King.
I was just thinking that. Like,
yes.
They totally have that hyena laugh going on.
They do. Like, they are just maniacal. Like, if they just turned into gremlins, it wouldn't shock me. Like, this movie would be better if you played that gremlin, like, over it all. And there's like another moment in here in which when they killed the third person, I don't remember if you saw this part, but they get him in the car and they've got the knife. I was like, were you talking? Were you spilling the beans on us? You know, this is my friend. He just moved up from down south too, which there's a lot of jokes about them moving up from down south or where they came from. Like, I get it. All right, that's not bad. All right, I'll give you that pun. That's not bad. So they need to kill another person in order to make space for him. And then you see them all like transform into demons inside the car. And that was actually a pretty good effect. I actually kind of dug that moment. The makeup on them when they're actually turning to evil and into monsters is actually pretty good in here. But they stop on the side of a bridge. And you just see them chucking body parts out. They're like, here's an arm, here's a leg, there goes a torso. And again, it just almost felt cartoonish to me. But when you get to the end of it and you realize this is a Stephen King film, you kind of look back and it's like, yeah, that's just what Stephen King boys do. That's just how you write a Stephen King boy. And most of the boys in his films, you know, they're monsters, but here they're literal monsters from hell. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, you know what? It's actually that's another one of the reasons these are the best bullies in any Stephen King film is that it's like you kind of have an excuse for being sociopathic to this level. You kind of have an excuse for why you would cut up a person's body. Don't get me wrong, I grew up around a bunch of sociopathic bullies when I was a kid, and they did just torture me a lot. But Stephen King will still always go that one notch a little bit further. It's like, all right, I'm not saying there aren't bullies out there like that, but they're kind of rare. But yeah, throughout a large chunk of this film, it is like people starting to like suspect that maybe the teacher's the one who's been killing all of them, which again is kind of another Stephen King sort of thing. That, you know, you gotta have that moment in which the hero is at his lowest and, oh no, everyone has turned against me. You know, that goes on a lot in Stephen King movies. So, yeah, okay, it is really just kind of like, this is just going down the Stephen King checklist.
Yeah, I feel like...
But if you're okay with that...
Yeah, like, if you're a big Stephen King fan, I think you would enjoy this movie.
Absolutely, like, yeah. And here's like, I'm hot and cold in Stephen King, but... I can look at him in that auteur sense. I can look at him in that, like, this is what he does. Yeah. And you know what? If I can get myself in that mindset to accept that, fine.
Yeah,
and,
like, if the tropes are done right, you get a good movie.
Exactly. And heck, even when they're done wrong, Stephen King, when he does a trope wrong, he still does it in that very uniquely wrong Stephen King way that makes you kind of go, all right, that's still kind of enjoyable. Still kind of had some fun with that. And that's kind of what a lot of, like, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I don't like, but... I still kind of was like, yeah, but you know, I'll give it a pass. I'll give you a pass on this one. But there are other things in here that I do like. Like, I actually do kind of like this concept of, like, it almost feels like this was the movie that Stephen King was always destined to make. Because you can tell Stephen King got tormented by bullies as a kid. And this is about a, you know, college graduate intellectual type, you know, kind of Stephen King-ish himself, who now is being tormented by the ghost of the boys that tormented him as a kid.
He's literally being haunted by his past.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like, this really kind of feels like it was Stephen King facing his own demons on this one. I was like, listen, I gotta finally deal with, like, the nightmares that I have about the people that tormented me when I was a kid, so I'm gonna write a book about that exact thing. So I was like, all right, you know what?
Fair enough.
I gotta give you some points on that one. Like, I've always kind of appreciated a film in which you can understand where the director and the writer are coming from. And in this case, Stephen King wasn't either of them, but he was the source material on this one. And yeah, you can look at that and be like, all right, you know what? I understand like that personal connection it has. Like when I can feel a personal connection to a film, it does add extra stuff to it. And I definitely got that from this film. But yeah, also, as I said, the boys, I hated the boys in the beginning of this, not because they're the villains and you're supposed to hate them, but because they are just so cartoonish. But as this goes along, I gotta give them credit for towards the end of this movie, they just go up to 11 with these boys. Like, there's those moments in which they are just hooting and hollering outside of the church, and they're not doing anything. They're not, like, really being all that menacing. They're just, like, whacking the side of a church with sticks, and we know they can't go inside of it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know, it'd probably be scary if I was actually in there, but it's almost kind of comical. It was like, you ain't gonna do shit.
Yeah.
And there's a moment in which one of them runs up to the side of the building and literally runs up the wall and does a flip.
Yeah.
Like, not special effects, just
no, like a legit flip.
Just parkour. That's it. Yeah, he just instantly is like, check out this sweet move, guys, for no reason at all.
They're just having a blast.
And I was like, man, you're evil. You're horrible people. But you're kind of like gremlins at this moment.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of fun watching you.
Yeah, it's like, it's hard to get mad at a movie when you know the actors are having a fun time.
Yeah,
like,
and you can tell that these guys playing the three greasers were just like, yeah, man, I'm just going to lean into this. And it's like, you know what? Kudos to you guys on that. I got to give you some points on that one. But as the film goes along, and, you know, I'll go ahead and give my score on this one. I'm going to give it a 7. Because I did actually like this.
Yeah, I'm not going to give it a score since I didn't really see it.
You didn't see enough of it. Because I did actually like this, but I think that's a little too slow in the beginning of this. I think it takes a little bit too long to really build up to it. I think the sound effects are way too goofy, even for when this film is like supposed to be goofy.
Like, would you want to like a remake of it for like movie theater or nah?
I can actually see that. I can see that being done. But if you did it for movie theaters, I would say play it way more subtle. Because we've already got it as goofy as you can get in this. We've already got going up to like as crazy as you can get with it. I would definitely say make it more subtle for that. Like make it so that like we don't know whether or not the people coming into the class are the bullies. Because in this one, they're like, no, I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says, I'm the bully that tormented the teacher when he was a little kid. I'm secretly a demon. Yeah, like play a little more subtle where like the audience doesn't fully know.
Yeah.
You don't really know. You don't have like the Ghost Rider car knocking people off bridges. So like just students start popping up dead and you don't know why. So yeah, maybe play it as like a is it all in the teacher's head kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that kind of thing. If you were going to remake it, that is. Like, just to make it very different from this one, because you don't need to just make this movie again and put it on screen. There's no point in just remaking something if you're just going to make it exactly the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, so score-wise, 7, because I did have fun with it, and I did appreciate like when this movie was willing to go nuts, and I appreciate the actors really giving it their all on this one, even if it did make them kind of goofy at times. And also, as I said, you do eventually meet the 4th member of the bully pack, and Stephen King, he's always got to have that one bully who feels bad about what the other bullies have done. This is the best version of that we've ever gotten. Excuse me, pardon me. So yeah, I did enjoy it. It's just, yeah, it's really kind of just like slow. It's kind of boring in the first half of this. Like, in the first half of it, I was just sitting there like, oh, I don't want to give a bad review to a thing that someone really likes and really wants me to talk about. Sorry again for the movie that we reviewed yesterday. I'm very sorry about that. But, yeah, so aside from me finding the beginning this kind of boring, and also, like, the sound design, I was just kind of like, you don't know what you want this movie to be. But when it works, it works. Although, I will say another Stephen King trope in here. We said that there's no psychic kids. There is, however, a psychic old person in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Well, I don't know if I call him psychic. Like, he
went into the ghost plane and he saw how the afterlife works. So he's got the exposition, which, man, Stephen King loves a big exposition dump. Stephen King loves to have that guy with magical knowledge show up to just go, here's how everything works. See ya. Not in the rest of this movie. Yeah, so we did get that guy in here again. But again, I'm also saying, like, man, when you realize it's a Stephen King movie, if you can have fun with a Stephen King movie, this is a fun Stephen King movie. But going into the spoiler parts on this, I really did actually like the 4th bully, because he didn't die. He actually escaped and ran out of the car as his friends died, and he's still alive, and the teacher has to go and find him, and eventually the boy at first is just like, man, you're crazy, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm out of here. And then towards the end of the film, he's just like, yeah, I haven't seen all of this, but I believe that you believe it, and you know what? I've been tormented by what I did as a kid through my entire life. And it feels like, again, this is why I say this is the script that Stephen King always needed to write, because he would always make bullies such horrible monsters. I feel like this shows him growing by coming in here and going, yeah, but they were kids, and you know what? They can grow to repent and basically realize the errors of their ways. Because even at the end of this, the bully sacrifices himself specifically so that he can summon out the teacher's brother's ghost so that he can come in here and help. So yeah, I actually really dug that. And that's another one of the reasons why I did end up really liking this film in the end. But yeah, so that was day 2 of the viewer's choice. We've got 5 more of these to go. I can't promise if you make a request now that I'll still find it, but you know what? Worth a shot. Leave your request in the comments down below or on Twitter and Tumblr and Twitch at Professor Thorgy. Thank you guys for tuning in. Come back tomorrow for another post-Shriek Out reaction. And happy Halloween.
Bye.
Bye.